Hey guys, welcome back to Jason Unleashed. Boom! How's it going, you guys? Jason Carter here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you. I know my pictures in the back are looking a little tilted, but I can't fix them right now, so I'm not going to. But today, my guest is someone who is truly remarkable. Love this guy. Jay Rodriguez is in the building. Yes, he is an Emmy Award-winning actor, host, Broadway star, and activist. He's on the show today. As a matter of fact, he just stepped into the room. So let's bring Jay in and talk about everything super cool and very exquisite he has going on in 2020. Show on Hbomax equals to his own Instagram live show. This guy is booked and busy, but I mean, come on. What do you expect? He's a legend. Jay, hello.
Hi. Ooh, I feel old, but hi, thank you.
Why do you feel old?
I don't know, the word legend. I'm like, ooh, I'm old. But I was thinking about it. I have been, I think this year, October 20th was my 23rd anniversary of my first day of rent. So I've been doing this for a good while.
Well, it doesn't mean you're old. That means that you're not new to the game. But good to see you, man. Welcome to Jason Unleashed, bro. You look incredible as always. The skin, Jay, the skin's on point. Oh, you froze. You froze. You're back. You're back. You're back.
I'm back.
Man, you're here. You're here. Well, I'm glad you're here, man. Lots to talk to you about. You have this incredible career. You've done a lot of great things, but something that's really incredible that you just completed back in October was Equals on Hbomax. LGBTQ plus stories at the forefront now more than ever. HBO for over close to 30 years now has been so good about, one, amplifying our voices and stories, but really telling them in a way that is nuanced, true, authentic, and something that really resonates with audiences. How did you come to be on this new incredible thing for Hbomax? And tell us about your character, Jose Sarria.
Okay, so I'm just gonna preface that it's a little ghetto on my part, but I'm at this station in my life where if you don't ask for something, you're not gonna get something. And
right.
You know, this show was brought to you by Hbomax, which is a pretty much brand new streaming platform that HBO rolled out this year. And by the way, if you don't have Hbomax, they're offering free trials for like a week. We're only 4 episodes. You can watch them independently. And then if it's not for you, you can cancel the membership. So easy to access. But I was actually auditioning for the show. And I remember it was the day before we were doing Family Feud, which was Queer Eye versus Queer Eye. So all my cast members were flying in from the East Coast and my iPhone was blowing up. Note to self, don't wear an iPhone. I watch at an interview for, an audition for the 60s. So I was there trying to hide it, but I saw it was a lot of the messages were from my Queer Eye boys. I was like, oh gosh. So I get in my car after the audition for Equal, and I noticed that the creator of Queer Eye and the executive producer of Equal was in the chat, and he was wondering why all the Queer Eye boys were getting back together and posting reunited because the Family Feud had nothing to do with the producers. And they shared that, and then I said, I'm so sorry I'm late. I was auditioning for an HBO Max series. And he said, which one? And I said, well, Equal. And he's like, that's our show. And then the first time in my 41 years on this planet, I was like, listen, why don't we just cut through all this red tape? You can go ahead in front of all my boys, offer me a job, please.
Right.
And so he laughed at that and was like, let me talk to my business partner, see what's there. Because basically we all auditioned with the same kind of scripts, even though we might not be right for the characters we're reading for. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Michael Williams, who's the EP on the show, who was also an EP on Queer Eye, and said, hey, there's this great role. It's a Latinx drag cabaret entertainer who was incredibly political, who served our country, who then went into activism shortly thereafter, and using his platform, the stage within the community. And when I say using the platform, I don't mean just entertaining. I mean, it was a heightened sense of fear in that time. Because you could be arrested, you lose your job for being gay, and then you layer that with being dressed in drag. So Jose found a really clever and unique way to avoid the raids, because the raids were taking people dressed in drag in because they were trying to be deceitful. So what he did was create signs that says, I'm a boy, and when the police would come, the drag queens put that over them, and they'd be like, see, I'm not being deceitful. And
Smart.
so Jose, and so even though Equal is just a primer for his life, just a base coat, a little bit about him, he went on to start the Imperial Court, which has over 70 chapters here in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And I was just actually honored by the Imperial Court for continuing to tell Mama Jose's story. But what is striking to me was the bravery it took, because you and I, we have certainly had our ups and downs with not just, you know, the way we have to navigate through life with our identity, but also in entertainment. And Jose was doing it loud and incredibly loud and incredibly proud at a time where it was far more dangerous than it is today in many instances. And so kind of just makes me feel like I wish I would have known his story sooner. It would have been nice to have known whose shoulders I was standing on, and to be able to have such a career that was in many ways in alignment with Jose's work.
Well, it's interesting you say that, though, because I mean, full circle moments. You opened with your being on Queer Eye, and you're in this one with, you know, a parallel. And now you're playing this role with someone who is pivotal, and I hate to use the word iconic because I feel like people throw iconic out so much, but who is very important in our legacy. Doing your research, though, Jay, you're learning about this man now, and I would say out of all the roles that you've played, because you have you're turning. Oh, wait, are you there?
It's taking on a little trip. I'm going to the other room, so this way I can get better Wi-Fi service. My apologies. Carry on. You
okay.
My research for the role.
No worries. It's all good. Your research for the role, I'm sure, unearthed a lot of things that you were not aware of. One, preparing to play Jose, though, what was that journey like, and how did you internalize who he was, and how did you encompass his essence? Because this is a man that was larger than life.
Yeah. One of the biggest things is that Jose and I have very different speaking voices, and because Jose's legacy is so alive and thriving, not just with the Imperial Court, which is still an organization that it honors him in everything that they do, it's also like he spoke with a mid-Atlantic sort of cadence. So if you can imagine, the drag queens from our day are inspired by people like Beyonce and whatever, and there's, you know, impersonators in that space. Well, in many ways, Jose to me kind of always sounded like this old 1950s film siren. And so just getting that right, there's so much footage of Jose on YouTube, certainly in his later years, but in his earlier years, there's actual footage. And the writers of HBO Equals, Stephen Hayek, who actually was actually one of the directors of Queer Eye. He wrote this as well, and he took actual you know, things that Jose said and sort of theatricalized them. So it was me in the pacing. This is the beginning of COVID. This is we were supposed to shoot on a Monday. The world was going to shut down on Monday, so we shot all my scenes in one day on a Saturday, and it was a pretty empty set. And so I just had my iPhone, and I was just doing laps, trying to match the voice. But the night before, I talked to Jose Sarria's successor, and that is Queen Mother, one of the America's Empress Nicole, and she was his right-hand man, and I wanted to know a bit about the person outside of what I could find through my own research and the documentaries I'd seen. And what I discovered was that there was so much of Jose that was still with us, and in the little things that kind of come out that were in the script and stuff, she just really said to me and encouraged me to know that Jose would be with me on set. And I have to tell you, as the world was shutting down and all our anxieties were raised, and there was trying to just, you know, get this job done, but also accurately, I did feel the presence of Jose, especially because to kind of bond the audience and to feel that family unit that we all have each other and we're standing with each other. Jose would close his shows with a rewritten version of God Save the Queen, which was God Save Us Nelly Queens, which I sing in the show. And but the survivors of that time who are still with us always remember that. And if you see interviews with them talking about it, they get misty and they get emotional to think about what it would feel like to be together in this safe space, holding each other's hands or arms around each other, singing the song to end their night, and then going off into a really scary world.
Right. Yeah.
So that was kind of, for me, you know, the research was a piece, talking to Jose's successor was a piece, but then ultimately just kind of trusting that the spirit of Jose would guide me. And, you know, each character really only had like 2 or 3 pages worth of lines. And so a lot of it is trying to just honor their legacy without getting too much J in there, you know.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But you know, like you have played so many roles, and you've played other LGBTQ plus roles. But would you say, even though the extent of this role is not on an episodic, it's not on you know, network television, but would you say that this is probably one of the greatest roles you've played in your career?
Hands down. And I think the reason why is because even though I've had real great fortune with having been a part of projects, I can think of my first 5 years of entertainment. It was Rent, groundbreaking piece of theater. You know, I played HIV positive drag queen from 97 to 2003. And in 2000, I did a play at Lincoln Center that dealt with racism on a college campus. And that was the first time I felt really validated as an actor because there was no music in it. And I was one of the lead roles opposite Hope Davis. And it was you know, it was unearthing some topics about race that people were not looking to have in an uncomfortable way, like the show highlighted in 2001. And then I did Xanadu, which is about a world being flipped and everyone's gay and being straight is the weird thing. And so here comes Equal. And I instantly understood the magnitude of the level of importance of the piece. But also, like you started, I feel like I was in also great company. I mean, this was not a big money maker. This is not HBO Max. I mean, this wasn't enough money to, like, you know, pay your rent. You know, you could maybe get 2 cell phone bills paid with this. But I think with that, people always say there's a lack of diversity, there's a lack of inclusion in television, and we can't afford to get these A-list blah, 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 or they're too busy working with Ryan Murphy. It's not true. A lot of people came together, from Sarah Gilbert to
Yeah, so many great
Heather
actors.
Matarazzo,
Yeah, Heather
Cheyenne
Matarazzo.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Everyone was willing and excited about finally getting these stories told. And I think it makes me also pray and hope that these stories start working their way into the classroom. Just to know that there are people, you don't have to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community to be inspired by the work that these people put into creating a better world.
You just had a great freaking point, Jay. It's interesting you bring that up because I was having a conversation about with my nephew, because with my nephew's teacher, about LGBTQ plus teachings in the classroom as well, because it's all just stories of survival, right? It's all stories of overcoming and really rising to the occasion in spite of, and anyone can identify with that. It doesn't have to be, oh, this one person can only attach themselves to this notion. No. Humans are freaking humans.
That's right. And I always say, listen, I grew up learning about all kinds of heterosexual history. It didn't make me want to become straight. You know what I mean? Like, it's not learning about people that are different than you can only make you a more, I think, well-rounded human, because I think it broadens your experience and what you might know. And certainly I like my world to kind of feel like a microcosm of, like, the tapestry of the world at large.
Right. Absolutely. COVID has been this, I don't even have the words to describe what 2020 has been and COVID has been. But for yourself, Jay, how have you been hanging in there? How has quarantine been for you?
Panic, I'll be honest, because I'm mostly at the end of the day a gig worker. When you don't see me on TV, I'm busy hustling, either doing public speaking things or hosting live events or hosting nightlife or touring with my cabaret shows. I realized all those things involve a crowd, and so that was going away. And, you know, for a while I was really nervous about my future. And I think when you work in entertainment or television, people think, oh, you are on something massive like Queer Eye, but, you know, there's no residuals there. It's not like you have, you know, this just never ending flow. And I think what was humbling was talking with colleagues in the business who are also hurting them. And that's not even to mention the massive amounts of people that are behind the scenes that, you know, don't get the credit all the time. So that was the beginning of it. And then the summertime came and I was hosting virtual prides and stuff. And that kind of made me feel a little bit more connected to the community. But then in July, I got to host the daytime Emmys, which was kind of strange and interesting because I was the first host of a major award show to go virtual with it. And you walk in and there's like your earwig and you put your little earbud in, and then it's like Big Brother, you know, they're like, step on this mark and that's your camera. And it was a surreal experience. And it was interesting to me because then the world started slowly opening up, and the Queer Eye guys and I reunited for a new TV series called Reunited. And so that was something. And just working on COVID sets and knowing the pre-testing, the testing every single day, and the COVID police who are on set does make me feel like as the world slowly tries to safely move forward with entertainment, that there are people who have our back. I am like diehard mask. Like, I don't even go in the grocery store generally. I will order ahead of time and they tap the trunk, put it in. I'm like, deuces. So I think, you know, knowing that there is hope for a lot of people, and we're all pivoting. Like, for instance, instead of touring with a cabaret show, I go live every Monday on my verified Facebook page and do a free concert there. And it just is a way. And by the way, that has been the biggest gift, is I've been going live every afternoon and only Monday doing shows, but connecting with people from all over the world has helped me feel less alone, and try to inspire, not just through the COVID pandemic, but through the anxiety that people were feeling around the election.
Well, it's that silver lining, Jay. Really, like what we're doing right now has been, like you mentioned, going live on your page. I've been going live every day since March, and absolutely it helps with that connection, because also being in this business, we're people, right? We connect, that we feed off of energy. That's how we're inspired by that connection. And when it's cut off, I can tell you that in April and May, I felt the loneliest. And I have a partner, like I'm married, but it's just not having that sense of community that you're able to interact with, that really, you didn't realize how much that impacted you until it was gone. And then you're like, okay. And also this business, to your point of, I commend Hollywood for really getting it together on the COVID front, because you are right. Sets are some of the cleanest, most managed places now, and it's very interesting to see how they've been able to infuse the guidelines into the creatives now, to where it's like, okay, well, it's the pivot was real, but Hollywood has done it masterfully. So I'm so thankful for that.
I think what people thought was that it would be lax or casual, or like, oh, Hollywood let you get away with murder. Oh no, honey, there are like COVID enforcers, and to the people who lean more like, we're fine, we all got tested. They don't care. They will not take any of that attitude on set. They will make sure you're 6 feet apart. Your mask only comes off when you're shooting. Then it goes right back on. Everyone is separated. It's interesting, because you definitely get some people on set who want to push the envelope, and there comes the enforcer, and like, I'm so sick of her. I'm like, I am not. I mean, I love you, but stay 10 feet.
Right.
they said it's 6. I know, but I feel more comfortable with 10. Now back up. Yeah.
Jay, you're an activist as well, man. And that's one of the things I've loved about you for years, is that you do not shy away from using every one of your platforms to really talk about issues that matter. In regard to the election this year, when I talk to other celebrities, I love to hear the conversations that they've had with their friends about like Black Lives Matter, about allyship, about the election, about Dems, about Republicans. What have been the conversations you've been having with your friends, and what are some of the enlightening things that you've learned about others during this time? Because I would say people have revealed, 2020 has allowed people to reveal some very real truths about everything that you would never have thought that person would have felt. And that's okay, because we're all entitled to feel how we feel. But for yourself, what has been the most illuminating things that have come to the forefront for you?
I've been a multi-ethnic community. I sort of had an advantage where I had exposure to so many different kinds of folks that weren't necessarily like me. And I have to say, even though I'm from Puerto Rican Italian family, you know, the racism was deeply rooted in the Puerto Rican culture. We were citizens, and suddenly there was a tier system within the Latinx community. And then when I was about 16, I went to an all-white, pretty much, high school, and I was diverse, I was ethnic. And that was kind of a big wake-up call because of the language and some of the things that were said. But then I got into Rent, and that was, again, multicultural. And I kind of got into this multicultural bubble, especially living in New York City. But when I got Queer Eye, I realized, oh, I'm the only one. And then I started, you know, kind of seeing the way certain things bleed into class and the kind of, caste system that we sort of have here in the U.S. that we don't acknowledge. Right. And so it's really tricky, because in the early 2000s, you'd be hard pressed to find many out gay or LGBTQ plus people of color that were thriving financially in entertainment. Many of which were, you know, we get to sort of be someone's sidekick, or, you know, not necessarily 1, 2, 3 on the call sheet. And so I've always kind of been able to have these conversations as to why not. And as we move forward in the beginning of the Black Lives Matter movement, I remember being at a protest 2 years ago when I was in radio, or maybe it was about a year and a half ago. And there were some people that came along, and they happened to be white. And when conversations about race came up, they kind of gently escorted themselves out. And as I've been really kind of having conversations with different communities, because I feel like my communities are really multi-ethnic, and I understand that's not everyone's experience, that a lot of the small microaggressions that people make, or the things, the behaviors and the words that they don't look at, have real consequences and actions that impact people in a different way. So the conversations around all this, I think some of the early, I would say like the new Christians, like I grew up Christian, and when someone's newly saved, they want to run and save everyone.
Save the world, yes.
And then the people who are not willing to accept that information right away, well, they're worldly, I'm cutting them off, they're not of God. And so a lot of people that I know had in my mind a bit of ideas around white supremacy that they were co-signing on, were suddenly like, Black Lives Matter and it's all the president's fault. I'm like, no, this has been in play forever. We just got real comfortable with saying, well, as long as it doesn't impact me, and even if it does, just not that much. And the idea of advocating for others, it was really joyous to see at the All Black Lives Matter, because there have been a couple of small ones that I've gone to before, but the All Black Lives Matter Pride March, it was really incredible and uplifting to see people, like a lot of white people, because I think people thought this was just going to be Black people advocating or people of color advocating for themselves. But to see the number of allies who had enough and didn't believe this, and having a lot of people look at not just, oh, I don't want to be, or I know I'm not a racist. Well, how do you be anti-racist? How do you make the record scratch in situations and keep it moving? Meaning, you know, there's going to be tricky situations when we all get back and the world reopens. We're going to see each other differently because, like you said, a lot of people were quick to post things that maybe not were grounded, or maybe not what their true intentions were, if you really boil it down, but they're out there. And now you're going to have to face your friends and have some level of accountability with that. So how I've dealt with it is I feel like I've made my positions really well known for a long time. Sometimes, I'll be honest, Jason, I've had people pull me aside in leadership and say, you know, that's just a little too left. That's a little, you're taking things a little, it's just, we don't, well, you know, Jason, we just don't want to alienate our listeners. I've had people say things like that to me, yet also say that they are advocating for the rights of all people. Well, there are overt offenses being oppressed on certain groups, and we know about them. We have video of them. We have documented court cases about these issues. There's been studies done. So this is not like, well, I didn't know any better. It's really about a moment of reckoning when someone says, hey, this is not working, and a community is crying out. Take a moment to listen and examine your own behavior and what small things you're contributing to keep that oppression in place.
I would agree exponentially. And you mentioned microaggressions and turning a blind eye. I feel like the entertainment industry, of course, because we work in it, we've seen it before, where they love to check a box, bro. They love to say we have, like you being on Queer Eye in the early 2000s, you were the youngest of the bunch, the only person of color, huge for television, in a time where like the only gayness we saw on TV was what you said, the sidekicks or people dying of AIDS, or nothing that was seen positive. And if it was positive, it was this much. But
you had 4 lines, and you had 4. Be thankful we gave you those 4 lines, you know.
And the 4 lines were like,
and not written by not written by us, not written by people that look like us. And I mean that for LGBTQ plus issues. I mean that people of color. It was how they wanted to depict us based on their experience, but they were not authentic stories. And so oftentimes as the actor, you're just thrilled to be on a set. And then now you're having to have a hard conversation. This is one of some of the things I wish I could sit down with some of these young Instagrammers or reality stars that have come up through the community who are celebrated and praised. There's a lot of things that we had to do, and tricky conversations and jobs that we lost for advocating for things to be said and done the right way, that would appropriately depict the community and not be problematic, because those words and images, they stay there forever in the ether on the internet or Netflix, and they're streaming now, you know, so.
Right, and these kids, but this younger generation, it's like a double-edged sword, though, Jay, because we're thankful that the younger generations are that emboldened or that mobilized or that galvanized. They are fearless in their sexuality, in who they are, in who they move through the world, to where it's like, you can't tell me nothing. When we grew up, you couldn't tell us anything, but you could. But these kids are like, no. you can't tell me shit because I have the internet, I have 1 million followers, I have been validated copiously in who I am, and so I am who I am. But I agree with you because some of the things I see online too are like, no, okay. Well, you with your 1 million followers, have a seat real quick because you have people that are buying into what you're saying and it's not vetted, it's not smart, and you're not thinking about the impact you're having. And social media, as much as we hate to admit it, the impact is instantaneous, right? Especially if you're an influencer, you can influence people in a way that's scary, in a way that's like, don't you guys have your own train of thought, your own thought process? But some people don't. But getting back to entertainment, you mentioned the Black Lives Matter, and when it was at the fever pitch in May and in June and the beginning of July, with all the performative action done in Hollywood about, oh, we see you, we stand with you, all Black. But where was that support in the micro occurrences of the creative meetings, the day-to-day, the conversations about treatment, about hair, makeup, all those things? When you broach those conversations, it's just like, I remember I worked for an outlet and I felt that there was a lot of microaggressions. And what's sad is that you gaslight yourself. You're like, wait, am I seeing this? Is this real? Are people really behaving this way? Because you're taught, and our generation was taught, you don't act that way. You don't be a piece of shit. So you start to gaslight yourself. And then when you bring it to someone's attention, you're gaslighted even more because they don't understand what it's like to be of a marginalized group of people. So I kind of have issues with entertainment right now because, yeah, they love to check a box. They love to be like, yes, we are going to have Jay Rodriguez play this iconic role because we are standing in solidarity. But it's what you do when the cameras stop rolling. It's what you do when no one's watching that's important. So I hope that after, as you said, we return to some type of normalcy and we have to confront each other again, that the conversations that we had on social media by posting a black box or all the graphics or whatever, that it translates into real life actionable items. Because honestly, Jay, I'm not too sure that it will. I feel like everything
No, I was just going to say that, with all the progress that we've made, there's still a lot of things. So we should be really excited that there's LGBTQ plus holiday movies now. But 9 times out of 10, the lead, white. We've seen the movie. I've seen that movie. I love it. And granted, there is one that I auditioned for. I didn't get it, but there's a Latinx sort of love interest in that. But I think for me, when I talk about these things, it's because people want equity in the work, right? And so it's great to have these opportunities. And I remember working with a colleague who said, oh, God, my white friends, they just can't get a role because everything's ethnic now. And I was like, do they know how things have been all along? And please, the statistics show that the most shows have the lead of the show is not a person of color, and trickling down, we're peppered in usually a handful, maybe they're the better ones, but they exist, they're out there where there's a lot of diversity on the show. But I think if a lot of times, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And sometimes executives, if they haven't done it, they don't know if it's going to work. But they said the same thing about an all-female led comedy. Bridesmaids proved that wrong. They said you can never have a black action hero. Black Panther proved that wrong. You can't have an Asian rom-com. Crazy Rich Asians prove that wrong. And so it's about really allowing storytellers to tell the most authentic story. And a lot of times people are like, well, we need someone who is super famous and a million blah, 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 blah to be the showrunner of this. And there might be some people already out there, but I believe that it's our job to put pressure on Hollywood to hire people to tell stories authentically who maybe you haven't given the chance to, but are more than qualified. So we can change the landscape and the stories can be a bit more authentic than just being the punchline.
Absolutely. And I think there are some allies like Ellen Pompeo and some of these cisgender white people that are like, okay, yes, that's our duty. We get it. So hopeful is all we can be. And I'm not, it's just, I wrestle with that. But what I don't wrestle with is everything that you're doing, Jay. And you have been, as I said, killing the game for so long. You're so involved in so many different things, so talented, such a breadth. I mean, some of the shows you've been on, I'm like, dude, steady working for over 20 years, Broadway.
It's the hustle. I will tell you this. I wish I had a more linear existence because, full disclosure, when I was doing Queer Eye, it was like every guy got a 6-figure, 7-figure endorsement deal of some kind. I think probably the only Queer Eye guy out of both casts, it's never got one of those. But at that time, I was considered unmarketable. And the reason why I can say this confidently is because Blackberries were new and people had fat thumbs. They don't click that reply all a couple times. And I saw what people would say. So my mere identity of being Latin, somewhat femme presenting at times was considered unmarketable to the masses. And now the boxes that I check that people are celebrating, you know, it just wasn't the same case for me in the early 2000s.
Wait, hold on. But let me ask you something though, because that seeing those messages, Jay, and being young and impressionable in Hollywood at that time, how did you heal from that? How did you bounce back from that? Because rejection's a bitch, but rejection on that level, how did that impact you?
Let me layer that with just saying I was 23 years old, being parodied on SNL and Mad TV as useless and unnecessary on my own show. I'm not from a touchy-feely, cuddly cast. My cast aren't like super emotional in that breath. So I went to work often days very broken, very sad, but never ever really willing to show that because I didn't want to show any sign of weakness. I was already a decade younger. There was always a lot of, you know, questions about the validity of my category, even though I was basically the third culture guy. There was a guy from the pilot, a guy who did 2 episodes on the Bravo version, and then I came in. And while they aired, it always was me in the credits and everything, and they sprinkled those others in. I knew that there was, you know, issue with the role and what they wanted from the get. And I think that, you know, the understanding of when things were happening, it was really never addressed. And I think I carry that with me to make smarter choices in the future. And I put it to the best of my ability, we'll shed light on that and talk about it now. But, you know, I think what I didn't have then, I have now. And that's like over 2 decades worth of experience in this industry in many different forms of media. And I think I have the ability to have tricky conversations with producers if I feel like things are going off the rails or either going to misrepresent the community or it'll be problematic for the community. I don't think I necessarily was heard in those times, but it was painful. I remember, you know, many a night crying about it when I was because I was a kid. Yeah. And there was no one really to talk to or share this with because I was in a position of privilege in one hand. And then in the same breath, I was doing something on television that I didn't have aspirations to continue doing the minute the show was done. And, you know, to kind of share that or talk about how I was an actor would put into question the validity of the other guys who were on the show. So I didn't really do those kind of things. All I did was keep it moving. I would have loved to have that show to springboard to another, but I'm not the guy who, like, you know, at that time got offers for things. It was literally, I had to disprove what they thought, which was he's just a reality star. And thank God people like Ryan Murphy was my first big show with Nip Tuck. It was my first big guest star in LA, and that kind of set the ball rolling. And then honestly, there were a lot of times people didn't want to audition me. And I had a bold manager at the time who was like, just go, here's the address. Just go ahead. What are they going to say to you once you're there? And I would just go in and they're like, hi. And I booked it, you know, like twice. And I thankfully the tide has shifted and I'm not in that position now, but it was not a leg up in the beginning. It wasn't. Yeah. This is like I think because I think people thought, oh, you got that because you're queer. I was like, no, I got that because I had to prove that queer. I had to shed the stigma of what they thought because of it. But I'm completely proud of the work and the legacy that show left behind. It just necessarily wasn't like a leg up in entertainment after.
Right, but you've done some incredible, like you mentioned Nip Tuck, Malibu Country, some like episodics, Broadway. To be honest, Jay, when I think of you, I don't think of Jay Rodriguez from Queer Eye. I don't. I don't. I just don't. Like I look at some of the other guys from the first show and think of them, but never you. And it's a weird thing. But with that said, though, everything you've done in the future, of course, we don't know what the future holds as far as COVID, but you're always working. As you said, it's all about the hustle. The hustle, what does it look like for you now? What's next for Jay Rodriguez?
God, sadly about to get on a plane in 2 weeks, but for a good thing, I'm doing a new roundtable pop culture show, which I can't really say what exactly it is.
Tell me now.
I know. But I am the only gay, so that should be interesting.
Awesome.
But that is something that's on the horizon. I'm on the Eric Andre show this season. It's a talk show where he punks his guests. I'm on this season. We shot it literally 2 years ago, or was it? It was a year ago right now. And then of course the Queer Eye Reunion show is going to be airing soon, and I'm auditioning for scripted things like crazy. And my goal, my hope, my prayer is to land a series regular on something. You know, that was the cool thing with Malibu Country. When that moment happened, I became the first male to garner fame off reality to become a series regular, and that was by a lot of the same people that said you're never going to be able to act because you did a reality show. And so, you know, disprove that one. And for me, it's not even that I need a show. I'm not like a super great on social media, and I'm not like someone who's always chasing followers and stuff. I just didn't grow up with that. So like, it's hard for me to tap in. But what I like is having the platform to use to be a storyteller elsewhere. So 9 times out of 10, if you are on a TV series, you can get better interviews, which organically bring up exactly what we're talking about here. And getting that messaging out is something that's really important to me in spaces that maybe don't usually hear it as regularly. For instance, I was working in radio, and I was following this year, and as we talked about Black Lives Matter, it seemed like they were talking about it on many of the stations, except for the ones I thought really needed to hear it. Like they would talk about it on the soul stations, they would talk about it on the queer station, but they weren't talking about Black Lives Matter as much on the rock stations.
Right.
You know,
or the top 40 station, or a lot of conservative talk radio. I feel that.
So yeah. So as much as I love to preach to the choir, the people that follow me on social media, and I do that pretty much every single day on my Facebook, I also feel like it's important for me to kind of have the we're here moments of putting myself in situations where I can fairly be a presence that can have tricky conversations by sharing my experience person to person. And I think social media in some way, shape, or form has elevated people's consciousness. If you follow someone, you like them, whether they're a sports player, any kind of celebrity, or they're just a great writer or whatever it is, and they share their heart with you, you know, it goes back to that Harvey Milk message, come out, because it's harder for people to hate something if they love someone that embodies. And so I always say my career has been this beautiful party with a purpose, where some of the things look really shiny. And it's funny, some of the shiniest work was like I got paid $500 for or something.
It's always
like,
that.
Yeah, and people were like, "Oh my God, you're like so famous." I'm like, "Girl, you should see my ghetto ass apartment." No, I'm not. You know,
Jay,
that.
I know some of the Emmy winning shows you work on are you can pay 2 cell phone bills with that check.
What you're talking about. And then, you know, and so with that, it's like what you do. Here's the thing, and I didn't share this. I grew up really religious, but you know, on the weekends, we would spend a lot of time with people experiencing homelessness. And so I got to know my local displaced community and feeding them and just engaging with them. That was just a part of like our Saturdays and Sundays. And every part of that kind of stuck with me. And when I was 16, my aunt died of AIDS, and my cousin. And then 2 years later, I'm playing a positive character. And thank God for Rent and Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, because they would do these big annual fundraisers. And I would always give the speech at the end of the curtain call. And, you know, together in the cast of Rent, I think we raised something like ridiculous, like $5 million or something like that. And so I've always been about paying it forward. It's nice to have nice things, but it's even better when you can help people get a leg up and just to find some kind of sense of stability. And especially right now, when I think where a lot of people are struggling and experiencing food insecurity, even within our own community, people that you and I might have kikied with, and we thought everything was cute because they could take a nice picture, are hungry.
Right.
Are hungry and are driving to food banks. I have friends who are just so embarrassed and ashamed to talk about their financial situation because they happen to be a gig worker. Everything was fine. You know, we need to start having these conversations and lifting up our friends. And in this community, we talk about having a family of choice, but that family of choice, it shouldn't just be limited to who's going to have brunch with you, champagne drag brunch, or go to Palm Springs or some circuit party with.
Hey.
It's really about these moments right now, how we take care of each other.
Yeah. Oh God. I mean, it doesn't get, wow, Jay, truer words, brother, truer words. And I think that goes back to, that sentiment echoes not only within the LGBTQ plus community, but the Black community. Just circling back to Black Lives Matter real quick. All Black Lives Matter. For myself, one of the things that I was so enlightened to see was how the Black community also showed up for our trans brothers and sisters, because homophobia, people come for me when I say this, but there's rampant homophobia in the Black community. I see it when I go get my hair cut. I see it. I hear it. So it's like it's not some new shit. It's real. And so
community too, Latinx community too, transphobia, homophobia, a lot of racism within the Latinx community.
Yeah,
so
right. It's crazy. So, but friends are the family we choose, and we do need to be there for each other, not when it's a cute moment for Instagram, not when it's a performative action, but when people really, truly need it. And that's what I think COVID has shown, who's your ride or die and who's not. And that's okay if they're not your ride or die. That's their journey. Let them be removed. But I do think that we need to be cognizant and aware that kindness is free and it's cheap and it's unlimited, and you just got to choose to give it. You just got to choose to give it.
Yeah. And I have a lot of these young friends, millennials, who I love, and they're great. And they would show up for these things and say the platitudes and show up with a sign. I'm like, I stand for Black people. I stand. Can you add that D? Because I'm going to need you to stand and actually align your words with your actions, even in spaces and times where it's unpleasant and tricky because you stand. I don't need your stand for social media. I need you to actually stand.
There you go. Stand the fuck up. Jay Rodriguez, it has been an honor to have you on my show. Thank you. We work in the same business, but I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of who you are. I've followed you for years. You're always the kindest person. You're so fucking talented, and I wish you all the best. And we see you. Thanks. Guys, go stop what you're doing after this live and go stream Equal on HBO Max. Get that free trial if you don't have it. Support Jay. And Jay, pleasure to have you on the show, man. All the best.
Let me just say this. It's a pleasure to see you and connect. We've been seeing each other since COVID. And you have really been someone who has for years pounded the pavement just like me, and some incredible things have happened in your career. But in my mind, I could be projecting, it's just your extreme passion and knocking down doors that weren't open for you and creating your own content in that space. And I think that's it's a beautiful attribute to have, because it's so inspirational. People like me some days to get off my own butt, and I watch your lives and they're so great and thoughtful.
Thank you.
Thoughtful. And I think, listen, I hope and pray that you and I can come together and find a way to work together in some way, shape, or form in the future when the world opens up. And you can wear clothes. You don't have to wear a Speedo like on Drag Race. I mean, if you want.
Look, here's the thing. I'll have my own talk show. Jay, you will absolutely be one of my guests, and I will. Look, we keep our bodies tight and right anyway, so we could both be in Speedos. We'll give the kids something to be happy about. Fuck it. All right, man. Talk to you soon. You stay safe, Jay.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.